Hey everyone, welcome back to their hardware news recap of the week. In this one, we'll be talking about Intel and AMD banding together to make the x86 supergroup known as the EEG. We'll talk about it later. Also, the 9800X3D has some rumors out there. There's more rumors about the Intel Core 200 lineup without the Ultra word this time. And JEDEC has published some information about CUDIMMs, and then further, EK Waterblocks' bank accounts were blocked again. Let's get into it. Before that, this video is brought to you by the Fractal North and Fractal North XL cases. These cases brought wood front panel accents to the market while still maintaining relatively high airflow and good thermal performance in our testing. The North series has optional all mesh or glass side panels, offering choices for build configurations. They also have color-matched accents between the white and black cases, with the wood likewise matched for the theme. Learn more at the links in the description below. First up, some important GN updates. So the website updates first. We'll do a standalone video about this in more depth, but the quick version is that we now have, by popular demand, a CPU mega charts page live on the site. It has over 50 CPUs in it with data dating back to 2017 or so, and that'll help you see where hardware lands for upgrade cycles, things like that. We've added a few other new pages we'll talk about in this section too. First though, sometime in a few weeks, we're going to be launching the biggest product that we've ever worked on for our own stuff. I did want to talk about it briefly, and you've probably heard me make a lot of Magic the Gathering and D&D and tabletop RPG jokes or references over the years, and we are almost ready to ship our tabletop product, like tabletop gaming. So it's a little different. I wanted to do a quick teaser of it just because it is different. I can't say exactly what it is yet, but it makes use of these. This is a strip of inductors, okay? So bear with me for a second. There's a story behind these. So that's a strip of inductors as in like for electronics. And then it also makes use of these, which are very tiny snowflakes, as in my cat, Snowflake, except custom made into a tiny thing that is used in the product. She's been in a lot of video clips over the years. Now, the inductors have a pretty cool backstory. The shortest version is that these were basically destined for a landfill, so they're e-waste. The factory had some problem or another making them. They were gonna get rid of them, and we basically said, you know what, we can use that and basically cycle it into the tabletop product we're making. So really excited to show you how we've done that precisely, because at the face of it, it doesn't make any sense, but it's really cool the way it came together. It's pretty cool, and it's on the immediate horizon. We've also been working with Wendell from Level 1 Techs. This I'm really excited about too. So we're collaborating with him on building a custom testing apparatus for our tabletop gaming product. Bear with me, you'll see it soon enough. It'll make sense. But it's a software and hardware combination. There's some machine learning in there. Anyway, the hope is that we'll be able to just go out to where he is and film a video out there with him and show some of that in action, and also maybe get to do like an office tour with him because he hasn't done one of those in a long time, so that'd be kind of fun. Anyway, the reason that's such a big deal for us is because these things on the store, I mean, this is genuinely actually how it works. They do effectively fully fund the types of testing we do. So like the website, for example, those updates I'm about to get into, the website's ad-free. There's no third-party bullshit on it. It makes it a lot faster. You may have seen the Haven review recently too. It had 8 different fan configurations in it. It's been a long time request from the community to do more stuff like that, fan optimization testing for placement. And that video, fun fact, was over 100 hours of combined hours across the team. So all of us together, 100 hours into making that one. And you know, because we don't do these sort of product showcase or product spotlight type videos where you basically sell the video to the company, that's not something we do. It's against our policies. That means we fund it all, and that means that when you guys buy stuff on the store, that's kind of what funds that stuff. So anyway, that's a teaser on the new product. You can check back for the next couple of news episodes to learn more. Really excited about it, obviously, because over the years, as I said, we've done a lot of Magic the Gathering and D&D and other references. So anyway, let's get into the website update. So for this, the gamersnexus.net website, we relaunched it last year. You might know that already. And we just added our third ever megacharts page. So this one is for CPUs. The page contains 2 types of charts, long-term support and active. Long-term support charts contain more data, such as older CPUs dating back to the 8000 series on Intel, Zen 1 on AMD, but it's a little less up to date. So it won't have the latest Windows, the latest BIOS, stuff like that, latest game patches, but the data is comparable, on that chart. Anything on the chart is comparable to everything else on it. And so some of those have around 50 to 55 CPUs on them. And the active charts are our most recent. They have fewer CPUs on them, but they're more up to date. So that's kind of the balance you get. This is new for us. There's a massive sort of disclaimers section. It explains our processes, the accuracy expectation you should have for the two types of charts, because it's different. The active charts are always going to be held to the highest standard, whereas the long-term support ones, that's the new one for us. And the data choices in general. So we also maintain a CPU power consumption megacharts page, which has over a decade of CPU power data available. We launched that previously. And we have a CPU cooler megacharts page with thermal performance of some of the, well, actually all of the coolers we've tested over the last several years. So all of these megacharts pages, especially the new CPU one, are an ongoing maintenance effort. But the cool thing is they remain at permanent URLs. So you can visit the website and you can just open it and then bookmark it. And if you come back to that page when you build a computer in 2 years from now, it will be updated for 2 years from now, whatever we have at that time. So that's kind of the point of it, is that we're looking at it like the problem was it's hard to find stuff on the internet now. And the answer was, let's just make it one URL so that people don't have to crawl through a bunch of YouTube videos to find the latest CPU benchmarks from us or whatever. If you want our data, obviously there's a lot of other stuff out there. But so that's the idea. Then at the bottom of the pages, there's actually an update log. So if you're ever curious, like when we last posted the data on there, you can find that and what changed. And the next major update for that will be after the next review cycles for CPUs. So these are presented with a lot of transparency into the process and specifically the limitations of the approach. So be sure you're aware of those limitations if you're relying on the long-term support data. We've defined it all. You can kind of use that and make informed decisions, knowing the limitations of the test, the process, whatever it may be, just because the long-term support stuff's a little different. So the really quick updates in our Haven case review, you might have seen a slide out. I think it'll appear down here. We'll pop it in again. So that's what the new card looks like. It's just part of the video interface. We dropped that in there. So that's accompanied with this page on our site. It's just gamersnexus.net/errors, and it'll be a permanent anchor at a fixed URL. There wasn't any particular trigger for this, just something I've wanted to do for a long time now and needed to figure out kind of how to format it and what to put and all that stuff. So this allows us to have an additional in-video call out right up front to let people know that they can check here for a detailed and permanent error log at a fixed URL. We also linked it right up top in the top nav of the website menu bar, so it's easy to find if you ever don't know the URL or if someone's just new here. Now, at the time we're posting this, we went back 1 year in time just to kind of get it started. We'll maintain it going forward. All this stuff I'm talking about today, it's kind of like ongoing effort stuff. It's just a start, basically. So give us some time to keep filling it in, but that's the tool if you want to use it. Now, finally, Jimmy on the team has really been working hard at converting all our recent reviews to articles. He has done a phenomenal job of it. He's gotten a huge amount of content up on the website. So Jimmy, if you're watching this, thank you. The cases category is now filled with most of our recent content. The Zen 5 reviews have all been converted. So if you want a written repository of everything for quick reference, easier to kind of filter through, then that's all there for you. Like I said, all this stuff is just, it's ongoing maintenance. It's kind of a slow crawl. It's by design, and we'll keep slow crawling and quietly working on it and iterating in the background. Then every time there's a major milestone like today, we'll let you know in a news video like this. And you can always just skip the updates if you don't care. So, but this is the best place we have to just keep everyone informed as to what we're doing over there on the website, because that was it's a project that's important to me. So anyway, finally, before moving on, these North Carolina hurricane relief charity shirts we're doing, we announced in the last news episode. If you want to learn more, we're giving 100% of the profits to 3 different groups that are in our home state, helping towns that are actually not too distant from us in some cases with recovery from one of the recent hurricanes. And these have been on the store. We're closing the orders in the next couple days because I want to donate the money and I want to place the order for the shirts so you all can get them. So if you want one, then go to store.gamersnexus.net. You can grab it. 100% of the profits go to the 3 groups that are in the description. Or if you don't need another shirt and you want to give money, you can just give to them directly. It's fine by me. I don't mind either way. So, but if you want to get one, then it's just going to be a couple more days, and then I got to close it so we can place the order and get it rolling, and I can give them the money. So, all right, thank you for your patience. Sorry to take so much of a chunk, but just a lot of cool updates on the website wanted to get through, and some community service type stuff in the site. So let's get into the news. First up, a quick update on the EK water block situation. It's been a little while since we talked about them, so we did that major investigative piece, and then after that we followed up with their most recent tax filing. It's been a couple months, I think, since we said anything about them. And as we said previously, we're only really going to be talking about EK at this point and hardware news updates, unless there's something unbelievably major, because we've covered the full story in depth. So there is an update. The company's bank accounts are frozen again. Previously, they were partially restricted and then reopened just days later. Now, just about all of their bank accounts are blocked, including the Revolut account in Lithuania that EK had not reported to its tax office when we last covered the company from what we had found at the time. The accounts have been blocked for over 10 days now, beginning on October 7th. This is the longest we're aware of that EK's accounts have been blocked. One of the companies that buys products from EK to then resell to customers said that payments to EK were being rejected or returned, meaning that this block may also restrict inbound money. Our understanding of the Slovenian setup for this is that the court will issue these account freezes to step in and manage a company's assets, such as for ensuring employees are paid. Several employees and contractors are actively working on lawsuits against the company over non-payment. Finally, we've heard a rumor that CEO and founder Edvard Koenig is seeking a buyout for EK Water Blocks and might be selling a majority share to Exacta Agency, which we've previously covered in depth. At this time, we haven't been able to independently verify specifically that Exacta is the one that is interested in a buyout. However, that did come from multiple sources who are at this point established and trusted and known to be former employees. So that's still pending. We'll see where that goes. Exacta Advisory, just as a reminder, is one of the entangled entities that was based in Serbia and worked with Marko Mitrovic, who is the head of the EK Serbia branch and basically the right-hand man, as we understand it, to Edvard Koenig in Slovenia as well. And Mitrovic with Exacta is one of the pairings that we mentioned had a questionable return for large amounts of money. You can learn more about this complicated and, in our opinions, shady web in our deep dive EK investigation piece. But for now, the news is that the bank accounts are restricted again, except this time the block it's been for over 10 days, like mentioned. So that is pretty lengthy. All right, next up, in a team up as unexpected as, all right, what's unexpected? King Kong and Godzilla. Let's go with that. AMD and Intel have united to form the x86 Ecosystem Advisory Group, or EAG. We're going to assume that's pronounced EAG. Gotta work on the name a little bit. It's not quite as catchy as a name like The Avengers, but EAG is the best you're going to get from mega corporations. In a joint press release, the companies state this, quote, "The group will focus on identifying new ways to expand the x86 ecosystem by enabling compatibility across platforms, simplifying software development, and providing developers with a platform to identify architectural needs and features to create innovative and scalable solutions for the future." Now, the x86 architecture has served as a modern foundational pillar for PCs ever since Intel released it in 1978. There's been other solutions since then, of course, as well. And despite the fact that it's been around for over 45 years now, Intel CEO Pat Gelsinger stated this, quote, "We are on the cusp of one of the most significant shifts in the x86 architecture and ecosystem in decades, with new levels of customization, compatibility, and scalability needed to meet current and future customer needs." AMD Chair and CEO Lisa Su also commented. She stated this, quote, "Establishing the x86 Ecosystem Advisory Group will ensure that the x86 architecture continues evolving as the compute platform of choice for both developers and customers. We're excited to bring the industry together to provide direction on future architectural enhancements and extend the incredible success of x86 for decades to come." As for why now, x86 has faced more competition than ever recently, looking at things like ARM, and what Qualcomm is doing as an example, even working with Microsoft and some of that. And so this kind of has created, at least to us, a feeling of sort of that the enemy of my enemy is my friend mantra. Now, the x86 Ecosystem Advisory Group also has members from Broadcom, Dell, Google, HP, Lenovo, Meta, Microsoft, Oracle, and Red Hat, along with luminaries like CEO of Epic Games Tim Sweeney and of Linux fame Linus Torvalds. The x86 Ecosystem Advisory Group outlined 3 goals, which include these. This is a quote, enhancing customer choice and compatibility across hardware and software while accelerating their ability to benefit from new cutting-edge features, simplifying architectural guidelines to enhance software consistency and interfaces across x86 product offerings from Intel and AMD, and enabling greater and more efficient integration of new capabilities into operating systems, frameworks, and applications. It's weird. Thought Intel was laying people off, and yet here we have at least 40 marketing people's work worth of buzzwords.
Grow.
While Intel and AMD may sound like strange partners, the two companies have collaborated on the development of things in the past, like PCI, PCIe, ACPI, and USB. They also cross-license technologies to each other, including x86, where Intel has x86, licenses it to AMD. There's x86-64 as well from AMD, and historically there have only ever been a handful of x86 license holders. Many of these have either closed or been purchased, or just moved on. Jiaosheng is a current holder, which we've documented in a separate deep dive as being a joint venture with VIA. It's really worth watching if you want to learn about it and learn some of the history here. It's a couple years old now, the video, but it's still fully accurate as to what's going on. The new consortium responded jointly that VIA is also free to join the group if it desires, with this VIA reporting via Tom's Hardware. NVIDIA's Jensen Huang also responded to this.
Everything I'm showing today are very heavy.
That's the wrong clip, sorry. Here's what he had to say with CRN reporting. Quote, we support x86. x86 is very important to us. We support it for PCs, workstations, data centers, and so the fact that the architecture was fragmenting isn't good for the industry. So I love what they're doing, end quote. Gelsinger from Intel said this, quote, you all have a front row seat to maybe the first partnership with Intel and AMD, which is a weird thing to say because that's definitely not true. Even in our history, somewhat recently, AMD and Intel have collaborated. Okay, maybe better not to mention that one. Now, we're really not experts on low-level x86 architectural type stuff. You need to go to people with more development background for that. But as we understand it, there are lingering issues in x86, like old remnants of workarounds. And from doing just some basic research on it, it sounds like in some cases, Intel and AMD have implemented different workarounds from each other, which causes some complications for software developers that are just divergent enough to cause niche pain points in software development when trying to ensure compatibility or just performance. So maybe that's part of what's fueling this. Now, in theory, this should be a good thing for the x86 platform, and it will also further divide the ARM and RISC-V systems that are developing now, coming back around to that the enemy of my enemy is my friend quote. Up next, there's a rumor, we'll just get all the Intel stuff done now. So Intel's upcoming Core 200 series might get some rebadged Raptor Lake or Alder Lake silicon, and that's according to a leak on Bapco. So a cross-mark benchmark result appeared from a system with a CPU named Intel Core 5 210H. It claims to have 8 cores and critically 12 threads. And even more critically, the word ultra didn't appear. It doesn't even appear to be extreme, so the CPU is doomed. But more importantly than the presence of the word ultra is that 8 cores and 12 threads as a configuration shouldn't be possible from an Arrow Lake design as it's known now for these desktop parts, since the Lion Cove P cores don't feature hyperthreading. The physical core count equals the thread or logical core count. And if you want to learn more about this, you should check out our dedicated news video for Intel Arrow Lake and the Core Ultra 200 series to learn more. Now, in that piece, we cover the newly announced 285K, 265K, and 245K desktop CPUs coming October 24th, as well as Arrow Lake's architectural details. As strange as sort of that core and thread configuration looks, it's still possible that this is it's a leaked result of an unreleased product. It's completely possible as just incorrect software reading of it. We've seen that in the past. It could be misinterpreting certain types of cores as threads or whatever. So it could be wrong just to make sure that's established. But if it's accurate, then the explanation that the internet has gone with currently is that Intel might once again be planning to recycle previous generation designs into new lineups as low-end parts. It did this in the past with the 13th and 14th gen CPUs, if you can even call 14 a generation, with certain i5s, i3s, and lower SKUs bearing Alder Lake 12th gen dies. The new example bears an H suffix, indicating it's probably a mobile CPU. we currently have no indications if Intel will do this again in the desktop lineup. Now, inherently, the practice of reusing an architecture really isn't bad. That's totally valid. The problem we normally have, or the line we normally draw, is that clear to a consumer? And everyone, I think, in this community knows, especially if you've watched multiple reviewers or read multiple sources, that the naming schema for both AMD and Intel is a complete mess. It's very difficult to kind of keep up with year to year because they do change it. It just happened right now with this Core 200 series. So it's already confusing enough with the naming they choose. Maybe that it seems like intentional at some point. Where you look at NVIDIA and the 700, I think is the GT710 or whatever. You go pull it up on the Tech Power Up database, and it's got like 1 million architectural generations that it has spanned. And it's a little different each time. So these things we think are problematic. It's confusing for consumers. It can be misleading when companies like Intel, AMD, and NVIDIA use older architectures on newer naming schemes. It's kind of where we draw the line normally. And that's probably also the entire point of doing it, though. Up next, AMD has officially announced the 9800X3D's launch on November 7th, following the Arrow Lake launch on October 24th. There's really not much more to this news officially right now. The company showed a render on Twitter and a date, and they didn't even name it. So there's something coming out. They're trying to get in front of the Intel launch. Igor's lab noted that prices have fallen for existing 9000 series CPUs. We've confirmed this here when the parts are in stock, at least. Although there isn't any more formal information from AMD right now, video cards picked up leaked packaging and spec tables from manufacturers. These included a leak which lists the CPU as being an 8-core part for the one coming out, with a 4.7 gigahertz base, 5.2 boost. The cache is listed at 96 megabytes. It's expected it's X3D, and the listing calls it Ryzen 9, but video cards asserts that it will be Ryzen 7. And we'd expect the same because otherwise it'd be a big deviation from AMD's naming scheme in a way that, actually, you know what, these companies deviate from their naming schemes a lot, so who knows what they'll call it. TDP is listed at 120 watts, up from the 9700X. There are indications that the implementation of Vcache has changed this generation, but we currently have no formal information. And this is a historically short time window for X3D to launch after the base lineup, at least compared to previous X3D launches. All right, next one. So the layoffs will continue until morale improves. We look back to Intel. A large wave of Intel's planned layoffs of 15,000 to 19,000 people, which were announced previously, has commenced. So this is a continuation of what Intel already announced. There's also a number of voluntary separation departures here, where our understanding of that is based, well, actually, we know that Intel put a call out to employees of at least some divisions and basically said, if you want to voluntarily separate, i.e. effectively quit with maybe some benefits, then put your name in the hat and we might choose it and you can go on your way. Now, our understanding of this is that there'd probably be some kind of severance for those who choose to depart that way rather than getting laid off by Intel in whatever chaotic method they do that. Maybe Pat Gelsinger walks into a room and he says,
Papa's here.
No one knows. This past week, ABC 15 Arizona reported that Intel has cut 400 jobs in Arizona, which is where its fabs are located, or at least some of them. ABC 10 reported that Intel cut 300 jobs in Folsom and San Jose. CRN reported that the total across California, Oregon, and Arizona combined is 2,000 employees. And as we understand it, these cuts are part of, again, the prior planned layoffs. They're just beginning to take effect. Former Intel staff have flooded LinkedIn to note their departure, some of whom have had 30-plus year tenures with major titles to their name. I want to give a quick shout here, too, and some acknowledgement to Ben Benson, who now used to work at Intel. So Ben was Jan's primary contact before Intel moved him to another division, and then we didn't have anyone who knew what they were doing for quite a while instead, so that was great. He'd been there for 7 years, and I want to mention him because he is departing, but also, from a consumer perspective, you watch these videos, different reviewers, a lot of people in the review community have worked with Ben, and it's sort of the difference between when a company has a media representative who understands that the thing that's best for the consumer is probably also best for the company, because those people are rare. They are incredibly important. Ben is one of them. And those are the people who will take our feedback, and I know he read the comments all the time of all the reviews. He'd take all that up the chain and say, hey, here's all the stuff we're kind of f***ing up right now. Maybe we could try to fix this for people. That's the person you want at these companies, because they try to advocate for what should happen to improve. And unfortunately, the other type of rep you get is the sort of just the company defender, right? Where it's like they see their job as damage control and that's it, rather than like, let's try to do the right thing, and then damage control will happen naturally as a result of doing the right thing. So anyway, just as an example of some of the stuff he's contributed, so I basically refused to work with anyone else for quite a while he was there and said, no, we want to keep working with him even though he's in a different division. And one of the things that Ben did was he was responsible for that fab tour we published in terms of getting it arranged, where I made it very clear, like, look, Intel has zero control over any of this. You're going to have to get your people comfortable with the fact that, like, we're going to basically do what we want, and we'll censor some names and stuff like that on the machines, but that's about it. So he made that happen. We needed someone internally who could advocate for why that was a good idea and the best approach, and he executed it well. So Ben, thank you for what you did at Intel. Anyway, key media reps like that are the ones who help keep the company grounded while still communicating with media and making everything work smoothly and in a way that is ethical in terms of the sort of separation between the different roles. So they moved him years ago off of consumer stuff and onto other divisions, but we kept working with him through it. All right, in addition to his departure, of course, Intel has also shed thousands of other people. It's kind of a massive brain drain type of situation, except it's one that Intel has created. And you look through the people who have departed, and it includes senior engineers, principal engineers, very important people at the company. And for all of its faults, it will be harder for Intel to claw its way out of its position with some of these departures. You know, it just depends where they're balancing that, trying to go leaner so they don't just burn all of their money versus also still have the right talent left behind to build it back up. So we'll see what they can do. Now, one thing we're worried about with all this is just from GN perspective right now is Intel's ARC division, where they have already had layoffs. I don't know what it looks like right now, but that division's really only just getting started, and it's going to need a couple architectures and generations to have a chance at establishing itself. It was a rocky launch. You know, they improved a lot when we did that follow-up, but it's still not quite in a hard recommendation. It's always a caveated one, so they still need to improve. And right now, NVIDIA has unbelievable and sort of terrifying dominance at approaching 90% market share in the consumer market for GPUs, according to JPR. I think they had them at 88 recently. AMD has expressed that it will be stepping back from some aspects of consumer graphics like the high end. And so that shows that now more than ever, we really need competition in GPUs that can actually compete. Like, they still have to earn the customer's money, but if they leave, that's not good either. So besides, what are we going to do about the ranting about Intel's naming scheme if it gets rid of ARC? Right now, they have Alchemist, Battlemage, and Celestial. And, you know, frankly, Intel, that's a lot of focus on things like spellcasters and those in the magics. Not seeing a lot of representation for berserkers or warriors or rangers, rogues, bards. It's like empty over in that whole other category of class type and selection when building a player character. So this is a big problem, and it's really not a good time to be laying people off, because, you know, I actually just saw recently that Wizards of the Coast had let some people go, and I think Intel should approach them, maybe set up like a couple million, maybe 10 or 20 million or something like that, really pour through the players' handbooks and the monster manuals, maybe even get the Dungeon Master Guide in there and try to sort out this big naming problem. Because you even look at their premier partner, Sparkle, which has decided that for whatever reason, hierarchically, we're going to have orcs and elves with this gulf between them, as if somehow, inherently, elves are worse than orcs, even though, again, you look at Player's Handbook 2, 3.5 edition, versus Monster Manual 1, 3.5 edition, and you can clearly see the stats are comparable between them. It's just that the modifiers, positive and negative, sort of offset each other in opposite directions. So it really doesn't make any sense, and my proposal is that Intel should sink tens of millions of dollars into studying this naming phenomenon specifically. That will fix the problem. Speaking of money, NVIDIA, it's contributing foundational elements of its Blackwell platform design to the Open Compute Project, or OCP, And it says, quote, broadened NVIDIA Spectrum X support for OCP standards, end quote. Now, this does not include the actual Blackwell architecture. That would be literally insane, but rather infrastructure guidelines and layouts. The Open Compute Project's mission is stated as pushing overall efficiency and openness in IT infrastructure by encouraging companies to share intellectual property that can be widely beneficial to the industry at large. NVIDIA is sharing key portions of the GB200 NVL72, or its rack scale 36 CPU, 72 GPU solution, such as electromechanical design with the OCP community of that system. This includes the rack architecture, compute and switch tray mechanicals, liquid cooling and thermal environment specifications, and NVIDIA NVLink cable cartridge volumetrics. NVIDIA Spectrum X Ethernet, primarily designed for AI computation networks, is also expanded to align with OCP community developed specifications. NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang said this, quote, building on a decade of collaboration with OCP, NVIDIA is working alongside NVIDIA leaders to shape specifications and designs that can be widely adopted across the entire data center. By advancing open standards, we're helping organizations worldwide take advantage of the full potential of accelerated computing and create the AI factories of the future. Generally speaking, this kind of thing is helpful for the industry since rack and network layouts have to be duplicated many times over. Having pre-existing playbooks helps both in terms of other companies not having to redo the work, and it definitely helps NVIDIA because it likely encourages purchasing its own products and solutions to just fit those standards. NVIDIA doesn't wholesale share. Of course, it's made many proprietary solutions over the years that it likely won't open up, but the company seems to be deeming this avenue an area where it's more beneficial to collaborate. This is a quick one. JEDEC, the group that's responsible for establishing RAM standards, is preparing to drop its latest raw card designs for its CUDIMMs for DDR5, which is dual inline memory modules that are clocked and unbuffered, which sounds like a sequel to a Hollywood movie. DDR5, 2, clocked and unbuffered. And the movie poster would just be a gigantic JEDEC spec. Now these, as well as the smaller CSO-DIMM, feature an integrated clock driver, CKD, which, quote, increases memory stability and performance and enhances signal integrity and reliability at high speeds, end quote. It does this by regenerating the clock signal locally on the DIMM. The end result will be RAM that will be able to run at 6400 and 7200 speeds out of the box, they claim, depending on CPU and motherboard support, without being an XMP or Expo profile. JEDEC says future versions of the standard will target 9200 speeds, which has not really been seen outside of hardcore OC on standard DDR5 UDIMMs. JEDEC's board chairman said this, quote, in light of industry demand and the need to ensure DDR5 operates reliably at high clock speeds, JEDEC views the addition of a clock driver as a vital solution to these challenges and to our commitment in advancing memory performance, end quote. Intel's upcoming Core Ultra 200 series will support DDR5 6400 CUDIMMs, and AMD is likely to extend support on its Ryzen 9000 series in the future. So that's it for hardware news this week. As mentioned in the beginning, if you want one of these shirts where we're splitting the profits between 3 different organizations for hurricane relief in Western North Carolina, then head over to store.gamersnexus.net because we got to close the sales of it so we can place the order. And once we have all the quantities in, we're going to cut it off so we can get the order on its way. So we're going to close that within a couple days. Get your order in if you want to do that. Or, of course, totally fine if you want to just give money to the groups directly and you have enough shirts. Fine with me. The links are in the description below if you want to do that. So anyway, that's it for this one. We've got a really busy couple weeks coming up, so check back regularly for all that. One of the features we have coming up is a tour of a factory that is helmed by a thermal paste obsessed YouTuber who you all likely know at this point. So check back for that one. Subscribe for more. We'll see you all next time.